A few months ago at a press conference, Justice Minister Helen McEntee told me and insisted that Ireland needs to pass the hate speech bill, and her argument was that Ireland doesn't have any incitement to violence legislation.
Our incitement legislation, which is already there and dates back to 1989, but doesn't take into account the fact that we now live in a digital world. We also don't have incitement to violence legislation.
Now, at the time when she first said this, it struck me as a very strange thing for a Justice Minister to say. After all, I'm no legal expert, but I'm pretty sure that openly inciting violence against people is in fact a criminal offence. I don't think it's illegal to go on social media and call for violent pogroms. But when I pressed McEntee on this point, she insisted that incitement to violence isn't actually illegal.
Is it currently legal to incite violence? If somebody was to do that, would that not be in breach of Irish law?
Obviously, if somebody commits a violent act, that is committing a crime.
But what you had said earlier was that there was no legislation in Ireland around incitement to violence. I'm saying currently, if somebody was to incite violence and go out and say, let's attack this individual or attack this group of people, would that be legal currently?
What I'm saying is we don't have incitement to violence legislation. The Gardaí are telling me that that is prohibiting them in actually doing their job effectively. We don't have hate crime legislation. What we have is incitement to hatred legislation, but it's not updated. It doesn't take into account the fact that we live in a digital world.
So according to Helen McEntee, the Justice Minister of Ireland, this country has no legislation to deal with incitement to violence, online or otherwise. That, she says, is why we need the hate speech bill, to correct this alleged problem in our law. That's her story, and she's sticking to it, apparently. So how strange is it then that Taoiseach Simon Harris said literally the exact 180-degree opposite at a press conference just this week?
If you decide to, hide behind a keyboard or hide behind an anonymous account and threaten physical violence against anybody in this country, that is illegal. That is taken as seriously as a threat that is made in person. And you will face the full rigours of the law. So if you break the law, if you decide to threaten somebody, if you decide to incite violence, if you decide to incite hatred, if you decide to intimidate somebody, if you decide to, engage in activity that's causing social unrest, you're not going to be treated differently or especially because you happen to do it in a cowardly manner behind an anonymous account. You're going to meet the full rigours of the law.
You'll also notice that McEntee was standing right next to the Taoiseach while he was saying all of this, and she decided not to interject or correct his apparent error. I mean, doesn't Simon Harris know that incitement to violence is apparently legal in Ireland? That's what the Justice Minister told me.
What I'm saying is we don't have incitement to violence legislation.
If you break the law, if you decide to threaten somebody, if you decide to incite violence...
I think it's pretty clear at this point that McEntee's claim that Ireland doesn't have legislation to deal with violent rhetoric is patently false. In fact, it is textbook misinformation from a government that can't stop talking about the supposed dangers of misinformation. And if the only way you can argue your case is with non-stop misinformation, then I think that says it all about your idea's merits or lack thereof.